Hey, cheerful days. All right. And now we are getting a little sad. All right, I like this one. This is one of my favorites. Hello, everybody. It is Anthony Williams, and this is a update. Yay! Yay! We have surpassed 500 listeners. I know. Thank you so much. It's not me though. It's you. It's people that are choosing to listen to it. It's definitely not me. No, it's not. It's not me. Stop it. I know that was funny. So, thank you again. I love that one. Thank you again for helping us pass our really. There's a lot of milestones, but I think 500 is a pretty good little milestone. Now, I'm no Rush Limbaugh. I'm no Drudge. I don't have 100 million. I don't have 500 million. I'm not Rush. I can't sell, $1 million worth of t-shirts in 2 days. Okay. But I do want to thank you for listening. And I want to just update you on where I'm at. So it's been a month now I've been podcasting. And it's really been a learning curve for sure. So I want to tell you just a couple of things that I learned. And that's going to be it for this podcast, because this is kind of a test. I'm still in the process of learning all about this stuff. And that's one of the reasons people don't get into doing what I do, because it is so hard. But I'm here to tell you that you can do it. Just do it, And so for the last month, I have been podcasting and building my website back up and really launching my ministry from a shoestring, from the closet of my bedroom is where I am broadcasting to you right now. From the closet, dude. Like, I'm in the closet and you're listening to me. And why are you listening to me? Because you're smart. You're awesome. And a good program when you hear it. But I've really learned a lot of stuff about podcasting over the last few. And yesterday I switched my podcast feed, and man, it took me a long time to figure this out. What is a podcast feed? What is an RSS feed? Basically, an RSS feed is this. It is a text file that your website produces to talk to the podcasting host companies. Now, you have to understand, you have to realize something. When you podcast, when your voice comes into whatever device it is that's going to be catching your voice, you have to understand that device is going to have to then translate it into the language that the podcast app can use. For instance, I tried to switch from Podbean over to Burberry, and Burberry is awesome. I use their PowerPress plugin. It's absolutely amazing. But the only problem with them is they don't have an app that goes along with it. Once they get an app out, they will be the king of podcasting. But right now, Podbean does everything I needed to do. But what I did was I switched from Podbean to Burberry, and I switched my feed, but then I wanted to switch back. I'm stuck. So I don't know exactly where I'm at right now. I'm still kind of figuring this out. Okay, so here's what I've figured out. I do my podcast right now on my phone into the Podbean app. Now, Podbean is a podcasting hosting company in its own right. Now, they take my profile, my podcasts, and they submit it to iTunes. Well, I've submitted it to iTunes through them, but they are the ones that send it up to iTunes. So what I did was I took the AW Rocks U at Podbean and I switched it over to my website, AW Rocks U feed/podcast. And it seems to be working. I set a permanent 301 redirect. But here's kind of where it gets confusing. So, for all intents and purposes, it looks like I'm hosting my website on my website. But I'm not. I'm actually hosting the files on Podbean. So I do my podcast on Podbean. They host and hold my file. And this is kind of where I'm still like perfecting everything. So, not perfecting, but just, literally still figuring it exactly out. So, after I do my podcast with Podbean, then I've got the 301 direct. So, when iTunes comes looking for my podcast, my cat just literally just put his mouth right in the middle of the microphone like he wanted to bite it. He's so cute. He's just laying here. He's a baby. It's my baby. So anyways, when I take my podcast and I make it with Podbean has it. Okay. Now, iTunes comes looking for new podcasts. Okay. Well, when iTunes comes and looks for the new podcast and it goes to my Podbean feed sends it to my AW Rocks U feed. Okay? So if I don't fill up my AW Rocks U feed, if I don't fill up my feed on my website by updating it every time I do a podcast, then when iTunes comes looking for my podcast at the AW Anthony Williams /feed/podcast, when they come looking for it there, if I haven't updated it from Podbean, then they won't find it and it won't be updated on the store. So what I did was I switched my hosting literally to Burberry and set the 301 redirect, and then I want to switch back. Why do I want to switch back? Because I just realized that I have to record my podcast somewhere. Like literally I have to record it somewhere. And so if I'm not recording it on if I'm not using Podbean and I'm just using the Burberry or the PowerPress, I still need a device to record my podcast on and add the music and add the echoes and the tones and just all the stuff that Podbean does so well. Okay? I mean, they do it so stinking well. So I right now, so basically I have no subscribers, okay? But I have a bunch of podcasts. Now, my problem was I was kind of thinking I was a little bigger than I was, right? Like, well, if I had a bunch of subscribers, then I would have to worry about redirecting those subscribers. But I don't have a bunch of subscribers, so I don't have to worry about that at all. Okay, so we're going to see where this podcast goes, because I'm not going to immediately share it to PowerPress. I'm going to leave it on my Podbean account and see what happens, okay? And this will be another good test. But again, I want to thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to support the ministry, if you want to support what I'm doing, go to thebibletrain.com, click on the support button. Any support would be helpful. But quite frankly, it has to come from your heart. I want you to pray about it, and I want you to know for sure that's what God wants you to do. Well, have a blessed day, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.